What is up, everyone? Hurricane Liz here, back for another season of the Professor's Podcast. And I, for one, am really hyped up. I mean, we're still amid the whole pandemic thing. We're still not really on lockdown. They've been kind of letting us out of the cage here in Miami. So I've gotten a little bit crazy. As most of you noticed, I gotten a couple shades darker. It's like 50 shades of Liz because I'm a whole different color now. But Howie, how do you feel? How is the pandemic on your end? I know you still stuck in Hong Kong. I haven't even asked you that lately.
So I'm still in Hong Kong. I've been here for like 6 months now. I've been here so long that I started a company in Hong Kong now, and also right here it's kind of like they're getting about like 12 cases of corona each day, between 10 to 20 a day.
Right. That's crazy. I know that in Miami, I kind of lost track of how many cases. I know that's kind of irresponsible, but at the same time, there's been a lot of people saying that they're messing with the results and stuff like that. So I try not to let it get in the way of my daily life. But I will say this much. The part of my life that it has gotten in the way is educating myself, getting out there and learning more about Amazon. As you guys know, Howie and I pretty much covered the entire globe. Howie himself jet sets. If you haven't seen one of his vlogs, take a look at that. But he's been sitting tight for quite a while. So he's kind of getting a little stir crazy, ready to get out there. But amidst this pandemic, it's kind of difficult. And that's why one of the reasons that we came up with the Professor's Pandemic live virtual events that we're about to have again in November. Now, Howie, the last one was a raging success. People were up in arms talking about how much fun they had, how much they learned. And the other thing, which is surprising, we had a very different way of approaching the intimacy part of it and the networking part, where we had a very special sauce that people got to interact one-on-one and meet other people, make new friends and all that good stuff. You want to talk about why you feel that it was such a huge success and what people have to look forward to in November?
Well, I feel like a lot of people are kind of more like very isolated right nowadays, so less events and stuff. So we want to make it fun. We want to make it like a little different than any other like a virtual summit or something. We want to make it so that people could interact more. So we kind of had like groups, and we had your own little sessions and rooms, and then people were jumping back and forth so that they could kind of like get accustomed to going back into like a social environment somewhat. Like, so we win prizes through these kind of social interactions and stuff like that. So we thought it was pretty cool.
Absolutely. It was great. I learned so much. I took a lot of value for that. I heard from $50 million sellers all the way on to $1 million sellers that taught me a heck of a lot. They taught me a lot about giveaways, about ranking on Amazon. They were doing all sorts of crazy tactics, Howie, that I've never heard of. Things beyond chatbots. Like, we are in a generation where chatbots are somewhat being overused. I've heard of a lot of friends that have gotten 4 to 5 different actual emails from Amazon warning them about their chatbot usage and warning them of suspensions looming. And so I'm kind of excited to hear from this gentleman that we have on today as a guest. He might be able to enlighten us on some of the things that Amazon pretty much brute forces us with. But Howie, the last one, there was a lot of tactics talked about that are the next generation of chatbots, or what to do instead of chatbots. You want to kind of touch on that a little bit without giving away too much? Because I know that during this next one, there's probably going to be a lot of knowledge bombs dropped.
So last one, we were talking about a lot of external traffic, things that I think Anthony Lee was talking about. We had like Norm. We had like a bunch of people are talking about the next in 2020. What's the next thing, So so it's not all. There is chatbot, but we kind of want to go towards a new kind of age of Amazon selling using different techniques. So we just kind of published a new article on our blog, which is regarding Google ranking, using Google ranking to increase your ranking on Amazon. If you guys haven't heard of it or read it, go onto our website and check it out at signalytics.ai for that one.
Amazing. Yeah. And our guest today is going to touch on a little bit about the legal side of Amazon, which I know a lot of us have gotten tangled up with. We've heard of people in the actual mastermind get trapped with millions of dollars in their account. We've heard of people get trapped with several $1,000s in account. I personally have a lot of money tied up in accounts, so I've gotten tangled up with Amazon, and I'm sure there's a lot of other instances where people have gotten tangled up with Amazon. So he's an expert at helping you untangle that, or kind of having a voice back, right? Because Amazon is like that giant elephant in the room, and they constantly bully us around. Howie, I know you've been bullied a lot by Amazon. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you actually handpicked this gentleman and you thought what he had to say was so fascinating that you had to have him as a speaker?
Well, I met Paul, I believe like a year or 2 years ago, believe, in New York. We were at one of the event that I was speaking at, and then from there I've been hearing him from places here and there talking about how to protect yourself from what Amazon does. So I think I travel around the world all the time, and I want to always look around for people that I would think that would add value to our community. And so I just thought that was a great idea, because I wanted to hear what Paul has to say as well. So that's why I want to pick Paul to come up to our podcast right here, as well as our mastermind as well.
Right, absolutely. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce this gentleman here. And I will say this much, Paul, I have been known, now I've become known as, instead of Hurricane Liz, the butcher of Amazon, because I always tend to butcher speakers' names. But correct me if I'm wrong, it's Paul Rafelson. Is that correct?
You would be partially correct, because I've sort of adopted that as my name, but since I was a kid. So it is technically Rafelson, but everybody calls me Rafelson since I was a kid. And so
the butcher strikes, Paul.
I'm good with either. I wouldn't call that a butchering. Rafelson might have been a butchering, but I think that's a minor nick, but nothing major.
Amazing. Now at least I learned how to pronounce that right. But like I said, Paul, I warned you ahead of time. That's why they call me the butcher. But let's first talk about you and kind of some of your background, Paul. And the way that I like to tell people is pretend you're on an elevator ride with Howie, and you have 2 minutes to pitch yourself to him as to why you are the man when it comes to untangling ourselves with Amazon.
Sure. Oof, no pressure, right? Okay. Elevator pitches are tough. So here's the deal. I got into this whole thing sort of by accident, right? I never intended to be a lawyer in private practice, any of those things. I spent most of my life in corporate law working. I worked at Microsoft, I worked for Walmart corporate, and I worked for General Electric, big corporations, doing predominantly tax and corporate law and litigation. And but I was an Amazon seller. I was an Amazon seller in law school, 15 years ago, before there was FBA. I was doing arbitrage. My wife worked for Seller Performance back when they weren't even called Seller Performance back then. They were called I forget, the TRMS or something like that. So I happen to know a lot about Amazon, and there was an issue that hit with back taxes and sellers being told they owe their life savings to Amazon, to California and other states. And just sort of what started with a blog post brought me into this world as a lawyer serving Amazon sellers, and quickly realizing that, it's not just tax. There's just tons of issues here that we need to address to get, sellers some basically leveling of the playing field. So I've sort of taken the experience I've had in sort of big corporate world, working for some of the largest companies in the world, and just sort of, streamlining it and building a law practice around helping small businesses and adapting to that. And I think, my partner, Jeff Schick, and I have done a great job of doing that. Now, the additional thing that I do, in addition to having a law practice, is I'm trying to get Amazon sellers, small businesses, to understand something that the big corporations have known for years, that when you want to change society, when you're trying to change things, right? When you're trying to change the way things work on Amazon, it can be done, but it's got to be done as a collective effort. So, there's all these there's this tribalism on Amazon. I'm a member of this group. I'm a member of that group. And that's fine. But what I've been trying to do is I create an organization called the Online Merchants Guild. And I volunteer my time to help run the efforts of that group. And that group is a trade association. It's applying for nonprofit status. But what it is basically saying, hey, we may all be competitors on some front, but there's certain issues where we all have a common interest here, like making Amazon more fair, right? We should pool our resources together and form an organization and that can actually fight and advocate for us. So somebody mentioned earlier arbitration, right? there's an appetite in Congress to fix arbitration, right? There's an absolute appetite, but there's nobody's hearing from us. Nobody in Congress understands who we are as a class of sellers. They're starting to see it. We saw it with the testimony, but we really haven't done a great job of putting ourselves out there. So what ends up happening is, who leads the dialogue on how e-commerce law and policy has changed? Amazon, eBay, these companies who have an interest in maintaining the status quo, arbitration, so that they can continually and perpetually screw us over, for lack of a better word. So I advocate on two fronts. So I have my law practice, which is geared towards Amazon sellers and focusing on the e-commerce community. But I also really have this strong passion project that I believe is so important, where sellers need to get together, and we need to start building a lobbying presence, a full-time lobbying presence in Washington, and really start changing things so that, we can put ourselves on even keel with Amazon, which is very much possible. We're voters, right? There's hundreds of thousands, how much, 800, a million, I forget what Amazon's last count just in the US. That's a lot of voters. I mean, I'm not saying we're gonna get all of them, but you get a lot of influential small business owners together, you're gonna get Congress to listen. It's gonna be more powerful than what Amazon has to say in many ways, right? So we need to really focus on getting together, and that's the key way we fight back. So that's my pitch.
Yeah,
I guess. I don't know.
That's really great. I actually enjoy the thought of trying to gather together, as opposed, like you said, the tribalism that there is on Amazon.
Very much so. And
I'm sorry. So just that, I think a lot of people are worried and scared about doing that tribalism or trying to confront Amazon, is because Amazon might come back to them. Amazon is known to be like kind of somewhat like retaliating to sellers, or at least if you're like one or two sellers, but if you maybe in a group of clan of sellers, and that would be a different story, because that's going to be a Wall Street Journal thing.
Well, that's what Online Merchants Guild does. So we rely on the support of our members, and all that money goes to fund lobbying. Like we lobbied for some law changes in California regarding, the 72-hour rule came out of something we did, right? The 72-hour suspension notice came out of a rule that, because we were advocating for more fairness on Amazon, it's a starting point. We really need that to be a federal law, and we really need to push for more fairness. But the beauty of having an organization is that we don't have to say who's the members, right? It's Online Merchants Guild. It's the organization, right, that represents X number of sellers. We don't actually have to disclose who you are individually. And I will say that I do get that a lot. People are afraid of Amazon's retaliation. I do think to some extent, though, that is going to be limited. If you look at what's going on in Congress right now, Amazon's under such scrutiny. I don't think that they really, I think it's going to become obvious. If, all of a sudden, there's a couple thousand sellers working together, and all of a sudden they're all facing, detrimental action by Amazon, it's going to get noticed, right? That's going to be a big problem. And I don't think Amazon is that stupid, for lack of a better word, to actually do that. But I understand the fear, and I certainly get it. But like we always say, it's like, we don't tell people who our members are. We don't bring it out to public play. When we act on behalf of the community, we act as an organization. So they're not necessarily knowing that, this person or that person is part of this or whatnot. And we've had some really great success. We challenged the price gouging efforts. A lot of state governments were going after our clients for price gouging. We proved that was illegal. We proved that was unconstitutional. You cannot go after an Amazon seller for price gouging on Amazon, because of the nature of how Amazon works. It violates our U.S. constitutional law. And we proved that. We won a court case in federal court in Kentucky. We're going to appeal it to the state of Kentucky is appealing it to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is what we want. We want it to have broader applicability. But, we saw the law as obvious. And these are things that we can do. We've got another case in the works, but we should be out there lobbying and really, sending a message to Congress. There's an appetite, like I said, to get rid of arbitration, or to dial it back, so that we can really get rid of this arbitration problem. That's allowing Amazon to just walk all over us, and that's the biggest issue.
So, I just saw like in the article, like saying that even Amazon are doing price gouging during the pandemic times and stuff like that. And do you see, like, I've always feel like, whatever Amazon does, they always try to push it to the sellers. All the responsibilities would go to the sellers and never them.
I wrote a letter. I can share it with you. I wrote a letter to the attorney generals talking exactly about that. I said they keep scapegoating us, right? When the pandemic was first happening, I mean, it was Amazon that was recommending prices of masks and saying, you could sell this Purell for $7. Like, we're relying on Amazon's data, their automatic repricers, right? Their statistical data that you can get from apps like Keepa to tell us what the pricing is to guess. And so we kind of pushed back on the attorney general and said, look, this is really Amazon at the end of the day. They told us this is what it is, and they weren't in the best position. If $10 for an 8-ounce bottle of Purell shipped to somebody's house is price gouging, then really Amazon is in the best position to actually not allow that to happen, as opposed to allowing it to happen and then blaming the sellers for allowing it, even though they're sort of encouraging it and playing a major part in this, right? And that was the message we sent. And then we talked about this in other examples, right? Amazon, their whole business model in a way is based on scapegoating sellers, right? Everything that a normal retail store wouldn't do, they get away with because they blame the seller and not themselves. But the law is changing, and that's coming to an end, like with a product liability. So if somebody gets injured on a product sold by a third-party seller, right? Amazon will always say, that's not our fault, we're not a store. But under US law, stores are liable. Even if the store isn't technically at fault, stores are liable for the damage because they're usually the easiest to access. There was a case in California right now where the Court of Appeals just found Amazon liable for injury caused by a third-party product. So we're seeing the law starting to catch up with Amazon's sort of racket of, okay, it's not our fault, and we'll just blame somebody else. And so, it allows them to sell, goods that are, counterfeits, for example. I mean, the biggest problem with counterfeits is that Amazon doesn't police it in the right way because they try to say we're not accountable for counterfeits, whereas a traditional store like Best Buy or Walmart would be in their physical store. And that, I think, is starting to change. So we're starting to see that, but you're absolutely right. That is Amazon's model, is to say, never our fault, always the seller's fault. But, that's sort of like Napster saying it wasn't our fault that people were sharing music on our website, right? It's not a really great defense, but it's worked for them so far. But I think the world is changing.
So maybe we did talk about this topic about we just want to really know, like, what would you consider yourself the foremost expert on regarding Amazon? Like, what's the domain expertise?
That's a good question. So I think my expertise is more the external. I have a partner in my firm who handles the internal. I have a partner in my firm who he's the Schick in my law firm. I'm Rafelson Schick, and he is a 7-figure Amazon seller. He's much more alive. So he's kind of very much handling the internal of how to deal with Amazon. My expertise is sort of the external. What are the external risks out there, right? Where are you going to get hurt? Where are you going to get, in trouble? And what are the external threats? So is that, could be a Prop 65 violation in California, could be price gouging, could be somebody accusing you of counterfeit and freezing your assets on Amazon and seeking to freeze your funds. It's just whatever the flavor of the day is in terms of what Amazon is doing. My focus is always on the external risks and the legality issues, right? The other things we do, it's like, we try to kind of help sellers also grow up a little bit. I find that a lot of sellers start their business when they're young or kind of naive about business. They don't know if this is real. They form a LLC on the internet and, that's how they're going about their life. And now all of a sudden they've got these really valuable assets. They've got valuable intellectual property. They've got a thriving business. And we help them kind of, okay, you've got to adapt. Like, you can't rely on that old LLC and be protected from external threats. It doesn't work that way. They don't really work. And then the other thing I've been really busy with lately is helping sellers sell their businesses. We've been actively representing. This has been the busiest year by far, the pandemic, for us helping sellers sell their business. There's just been a lot of interest in buying from companies like, Thrasio and a lot of sort of competitor companies that kind of do the same thing. We've been just constantly bombarded with people who are selling their businesses and just kind of helping people understand there's risk there too, and working them through that. So, and then, like I said, my partner, Jeff, who handles everything on the Amazon platform. So suspensions, any type of Amazon suspension or freezing of assets or holding back of inventory. Jeff handles those, and we actually launched a new program called Seller Basics to actually streamline and help sellers handle the costs of that, because we saw, some consultants were charging, $5,000 for, account suspensions, and we just thought, it's really not it's really not necessary. So we actually launched a whole new program that's designed to give sellers access to a lot of these, to get the help they need when they need it, to have an opportunity to talk to a lawyer before they make big decisions or as things come up. And it's very cheap and affordable. It's like a $99 a month program. And one of the cool things is if your account gets suspended after a year of membership, we don't even charge you for those suspensions anymore, because we just sort of, it's not insurance, but we sort of, look at the risk profile and say, we're really confident, like, we can do this efficiently. And so after a year of membership, instead of, when your account gets suspended, instead of like frantically calling, every account suspension person out there and trying to figure out what to do, and sometimes in your most vulnerable state, getting told you have to fork over thousands and thousands of dollars, which we saw during the price gouging pandemic, when all these people get suspended, you have this program in place where we're already ready to go and we're set to go. And it's included in the membership after a year. So it's a really cool program. So.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool, Jeff, for sure. I know that certainly would have helped me, especially when I was a newer seller. But you already talked about a lot of great topics, a lot of things that I found extremely useful that I wasn't even aware happening. Like even though I was actually got some warnings for price gouging on some of my actual drop shipping stores during the whole pandemic thing, I wasn't victim to getting suspended, but I did have friends who had $60,000 plus locked up in their account as a result of some of those price gouging. So a lot of the things that you already touched upon kind of really hit home with me. But my question to you is, although you already talked about all that great stuff, what 3 to 5 topics could you talk about at this next pandemic event that you feel would really wow people, or that would potentially be life-changing in their business?
Yeah, I think the issues we see, and again, we're a law firm, so we're not a strategic in the sense of, we're not going to tell you how to make more money on Amazon, right? We're trying to teach you how to protect yourself, right? When you get to a point, when you're a big boy seller or a big girl seller, right? It's a very different way of running your business. And we see that that's the biggest failure. So what we try to teach people do is how to be proactive in protecting your business, right? So what are some asset protection strategies? What are some ways to protect yourself from the external threats that are out there now? And that's always changing. Like, what I might be talking about today is not necessarily what I might be talking about by the time the event comes up, because there could be the new issue, right? Like, price gouging was not something we ever talked about until March of 2020. And then, here we are going to court and winning cases and, fighting off government AGs. So, our goal is to sort of teach people how to think about your business on Amazon, how to protect yourself, how to structure yourself advantageously, how to prepare for selling your business. I mean, we can talk about, all the things that I think people are looking for, right? I mean, it's like, you want to make sure your assets are protected. You want to make sure that people are going to go after your house if something goes wrong on Amazon. We're seeing an uptick in indemnification issues with Amazon. People getting told that they owe money or that they owe money because Amazon's getting sued related to a product that they sold. Even in arbitrage, we've seen this. How to prevent, California from coming after you for government, for the environmental violations. How to make sure your product complies with U.S. law, patent infringement, trademark infringement. I mean, it's stuff. It's not sexy. It's not the most fun. It's not going to make you money, but the idea is we're trying to prevent you from losing money, right? That's our goal. So our goal is, like, you're a serious seller now. How should you be structured, right? Should you have a foreign entity? Sometimes I tell people, like, it's sad, but sometimes, maybe you should consider having a foreign entity in the mix in order to prevent being, government scrutiny, even though you're here in the US. There's ways you can structure yourself to do that, or just how should you be structured for U.S. purposes, to protect yourself from those liabilities. What's the latest on trademark and counterfeit infringement tactics on Amazon? What's going on? And just sort of strange legal issues that pop up. So whatever the flavor of the day is. And then obviously, like I said, I think what most sellers want to hear from me lately is really a discussion about how to sell out, like how to sell your business. Like what does the exit look like for those who haven't been through the process, right? That's what they're in this for, right? They want to, and then what do you do when you exit? What are the tax implications? What are some of the tax strategies? What should you consider? So I think, like I said, it's not going to be the most interesting, that's always the case with lawyers. Like I'm not here to tell you like what's the way you're going to make your next million. We're just going to tell you, here are the things you should do and should not do to protect yourself. If you're a serious seller, right? Like, I mean, it's just, and I think that is the problem. It's just people don't really take this stuff seriously, which is fine. If you're just starting out, you're making $20,000 a year in sales on Amazon, you're not going to go and do some of the stuff we're talking about. But if you're making $5 million a year selling hoverboards, like there's a lot of stuff you need to do. And I don't think our clients and our potential clients in the community at large really understands that, the asset protection problem, where they're putting everything at risk and the ways that they can mitigate that risk. So I'd probably say that's probably that, along with, the exit strategy. What is an exit like these days? From a legal perspective, what do you have to worry about? Can they claw back what they pay you, right? What risks are you taking, right? Those are the topics I think that we probably offer. And then I would defer to my partner, Jeff, and I would invite you to reach out to my partner, Jeff, and have a conversation with him and have him talk to you about the latest going, so like I said, he handles the internal, dealing with Amazon. And then finally, I would say, I just really want to get a group of serious sellers together to really amplify the Online Merchants Guild effort, to really put the money down. I don't take a dime from anything Online Merchants Guild does. I like these issues. These are state-of-the-art issues. I have no problem volunteering my time. I have a law practice. It's going great. We're happy. I'm happy to take on these global Amazon problem issues for the community. I absolutely love them. I'm a law professor too. I'm a professor too. I'm a law professor. These cases are absolutely state-of-the-art. But we do need to raise money. And I think that is so important. I really want to get a group of sellers on the board of Online Merchants Guild who really take this seriously and really understand the value of putting lobbying presence in Congress that represents our interests and only our interests, right? And a good lobbying presence might be $20,000 a month, which is not a lot of money, right? But it's hard to get the right sellers in the mindset that we need to do this and get the law changed, right? Let's get this arbitration provision gone, right? Let's get this arbitration taken out. Let's get a seller's bill of rights in Congress, right? Something that we started in California and we're successful with. Let's make a better version, an e-commerce seller's bill of rights. There's appetite for this. They're all scrutinizing Jeff Bezos and Amazon over their treatment of sellers. The whole world is. We are in the best position right now to strike, but we need to build a professional lobbying presence. And in order to do that, we need some serious sellers to back that and understand why we need to do that.
Yeah, I do agree. We have to stand up for, protect ourselves against Amazon. If we're like just one person or a set of, a couple people, Amazon can just crush you out of trying to bully you guys. But if we are all together, we would be able to, unite, have more of a word, and it's a lot more powerful. We were just talking about like hoverboards. I think I talked to you about the last that I also did hoverboards back in 2015, 2016. That I actually went to court. Well, we did the ITC thing, the battle. So
right, international trade. Yeah.
It was our me and we were talking about Alibaba, Newegg's. We got all these big time seller. Plus, we were all fighting against the ITC and trying to keep on selling our products, as well as some unfairness where they're just trying to bully. People are bullying you through laws and courts and stuff, so that you would back off from selling things, so that they can actually be making profit off, even though if they're not correctly, it's not their laws, or it's not their licenses or whatnot. So
ITC is, by the way, is something that I don't think that many people understand what ITC is, and it's sort of like the cheapest and fastest way to get block people from selling your products in the US, right? It's a way you can, if somebody's violating your patent or your trademark, rather than going to court and having it, a formal court and going through a multi-year process, you can go through ITC and get a very similar ruling. You can't get damages from ITC, but you can basically block them from you can block the product from being imported, and that's the key. And so your product is now kept out. So I think it's a matter of time before we start seeing more ITC cases, more companies starting to leverage ITC to protect their IP or falsely claim that they have IP rights that they really don't. Because
like a lot of sellers now need to know their rights. That's why I have you on, actually. So people are actually doing these ITC claims saying that, hey, this is my license and stuff. So if you want to go to court, then to just be able to sell this item, then do so. But I'm not going to let you import anymore, unless you go through ITC with me. So that's one of the things that people are blocking other people from importing goods to be able to sell on Amazon, as well as there's a lot of fake IP claims on sellers. So we got to know.
We're inundated with those. Yeah, inundated with those all day long.
Yeah, you got to know how to protect yourself, what to go through, because you're going to be sitting around and being don't know what to do, and then I got an IP claim on me, and it's on there. I'm ignoring it, yes, but then later on, you get more and more of it. You get your account suspended because of these IP.
Yeah, so what we have is some funny things. Our Seller Basics program, the $99 a month platform, one of the things we recognize, a lot of our arbitrage sellers especially get these fake IP claims. Like, they get inundated because these brands are trying to say, you can't sell our product, even though it's legal, it's legit. I bought it at Walmart, I'm selling it in Amazon, and company like the North Face will say, oh, you can't sell this, even though it's legitimate. And I'm not saying the North Face will do this, but some companies will file false counterfeit, false infringement. And we actually, our service, it's $149 per complaint, not per ASIN, but for complaint ID on Amazon. And we will go after the brand. We will seek a retraction using our sort of law firm approach to advocating for our clients. And if we can't get that, we'll go to Amazon. We'll do everything we can to get retractions for you. And it's a flat $149 fee. And it speaks to the technology. This used to be a very expensive proposition. We've made this efficient. So again, it's one of the Seller Basics. It's become such a problem. And we realized we can't charge people much more than that for every IP complaint, because like an arbitrage seller, if they had to spend $1,000 or $2,000, or some of these consultants charge for addressing them, and a lot of them aren't even lawyers that are trying to challenge a in-house lawyer or outside lawyer's position, they would never afford it. So we've created this very affordable version of how to address IP complaints, because you're right, if you left unchecked, they can result in a suspension, which is what you don't want. So we have my partner Jeff leads that practice. We actively go after brands. One of the things we see the most that's so obnoxious is when somebody claims counterfeit because they're selling an not inauthentic in the sense of not real, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say inauthentic, unauthorized, excuse me, I mixed my words. They're selling an unauthorized version of the product, which is not counterfeit, right? I mean, just because I bought the product at Walmart and I'm reselling it, so I'm not an authorized dealer, doesn't mean it's counterfeit. So they're already claiming, basically, they're already accusing me of a crime. So we have ways to push back, alleging that the companies, when they file false counterfeit, have committed tortious interference, that they've committed libel per se, because they literally told Amazon, I'm committing a crime. Like you're saying, I'm basically making these things in my basement. That's saying I'm a criminal. So there are ways to push back on those things. We've actually really done a great job. I'm really proud of what we've done through Seller Basics to really streamline that so that sellers can get some help. But the bigger picture needs to be addressed, like how this, there's still questions in the law that need to be addressed. The first sale doctrine versus the right to quality control and all those things. And then obviously, like you said, just people using, when it's not products that are arbitrage or wholesale, there's just the question of people trying to use those types of complaints to knock you off, even though they don't have a basis for it, like falsely claiming trademark or patent infringement or design infringement.
I think that the stuff that you're really talking about, hopefully there's some really good stuff that you can talk during the mastermind on that. But I just want to also, since those are some of the problems you see right now, is there any other problems that you see that is very unique that is coming up right nowadays besides the stuff that you just talked about?
I'm gonna defer. What I would suggest you invite my partner Jeff on too and have him talk, because he handles the internal Amazon, so he's got his finger on the pulse of like what are they dealing with on Amazon. But I mean, from what I'm seeing right now, it's mostly we're just seeing more obscure ways of like we're seeing a couple of things. Like I'm seeing a lot of indemnity issues, like I said, Amazon coming after sellers for indemnity. So like meaning like somebody suing Amazon because the product hurt them or threatening to sue. Amazon reaches out, wants to know that they're going to pay, that according to the BSA, they want to make sure that you're responsible. So they want to know that you have insurance, and they want to know that you have this, and that you're responsible for whatever damages Amazon could be potentially held to. We're seeing more and more of these. I'm seeing some quirky claims. I'm seeing competitors using more Deceptive Practices Act claims, like trying to like say your product is, your descriptions are misleading, or you're saying this is a heavier version of that, but is it real? There's a lot of like competitors using, like, we call it deceptive practicing, basically like saying false advertising, that things you're saying in your listing aren't entirely true, which isn't really that big a deal, except we're starting to see it more nitpicky in a way that, like, it almost seems ridiculous. And then they'll send Amazon some letter saying that this is a violation of the Deceptive Practices Act or something, and raises all sorts of issues. So we're seeing like things that like it's one thing if you're selling like if you say I'm selling 200 milligrams of vitamin A and really it's 100 milligrams, like that's obvious. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about really nitpicky, kind of questionable claims by competitors who are just trying to get people knocked off. It's still very threatening out there. Trying to think what else is going on. I mean, it's just more and more patent and trademark disputes, and we're seeing, like I said, people getting their funds seized based on trademark, getting court orders and default judgments against people, and trying to. This is happening more with our foreign sellers, clients. People in other countries who really can't respond to a court complaint, and then basically getting their assets seized. So whatever Amazon has on account, whatever Amazon's holding, Amazon will freeze those assets and eventually take them as sort of damages.
Liz, so is there a way that we can have like two people on StreamYard at the same time during the event?
Yeah, well, we can have them pre-record. That way there's no interference with in case the internet goes down or something like that. That's very possible.
Okay. Actually, if you can have them come on, that would be great, because then we could have both sides of the spectrum, so that our
I think Jeff
members will go and ask as much questions, and that they'll have all the answers from you guys on that.
Yeah, or I can have Jeff B with me in the room. Like I can have him. He's in Boynton. He's not far from you, Liz. If you ever want to meet with him, I'm sure he'd love to. He's a social guy. I'm sure, do you know Carlos down in Miami, Liz?
I've heard of Carlos, but I've never had the chance of meeting him.
You should. Well, I guess I don't know if there are meetups. He's a great guy. He used to run a meetup right in Doral, not too far from you. So, but what I was going to say is, we could either be in the same room and just be on camera, or however you want to do it. But I think he would offer a lot of that insight, and certainly whatever we talk about today, that may not be like I said, Amazon's always changing. So whatever the flavor is by November, it could be totally different. So, we're going to have whatever's the latest at that time,
of course,
the most egregious things we're seeing.
Do you, I want to ask them, one of the questions that I have are, do you see any big opportunities right now in 2020 for Amazon sellers?
I mean, I think right now, God, e-commerce is just insanely hot right now. So, I mean, I do think there's an opportunity to sell your business and the opportunity to grow your brands, and there's considerations there. But my God, institutional money is being poured in to these funds. Like Thrasio is obviously the biggest, but there's a lot of like Thrasio type companies out there that you've never heard of that are just dying to buy brands up right now, because COVID has just, created this notion that, there's unlimited upside potential in e-commerce. So, it tells you a couple things. One, your brand may be more valuable than you think it is. So, if you can get the capital to invest in growing it, because that's what these companies are going to do, right? They're going to buy your company at 3 to 3.5 earnings, and then they're going to invest a ton of money into it, a ton of PPC, and scale up your inventory, and they're going to sell like crazy. Now, obviously, there's economies of scale when you're a large company running multiple brands under an umbrella, but it just tells you, I mean, that's a huge opportunity right now. So, expanding your product offerings, more SKUs is good. It just seems like there's opportunity if you're good at launching. I do think that one of the issues you guys mentioned at the beginning about like chatbots, that is a big problem right now. Like, I've spoken to the FTC on that issue, right? This whole incentivized review problem is real. Like, the government, the reason why Amazon is so harsh on this right now is because the government is pushing them, right? The government is saying to them, you're allowing this to happen on your site. You got to do something about it. So how we launch products is going to be interesting in the future. I don't know how it's going to work. It's going to be harder, I have a feeling. But
I do have something to say. Like, I think there was something that I read regarding incentivized reviews is you shouldn't be able to be able to do the review side, but a lot of people is doing the rating side now. So now we could do rating, right, without putting any context and text in there and stuff. The rating will increase the review count a lot. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I wonder. I do wonder where the government is going on this, because I also think there's a question about like the way the chatbots work, where they want you to organically search in the search bar so as to increase the product's placement in the search results and its velocity, organic velocity. I think the government is starting to wise up to that being an issue. So, how they're going to tackle it, I don't know, but I think they're looking at Amazon more and more about, how people launch. And I do worry about that. Like, I really think that there's a problem, because at the same time, it's like, how do you launch? I mean, it's a sea of so much nonsense on Amazon. How do you get your good product out there? It's like, how do you do it? It's not easy. And it's sort of the opposite problem. Whereas when, in the old days where you would pitch to Walmart, and if you were lucky enough to get picked, you'd be on the Walmart shelf. And so there was visibility to all their customers. Here, the problem is you've got the store of unlimited shelf space where anybody can list. So it's how do you stick out, right? You're allowed in the store, but how do you stick out? I think that's going to be a big challenge going forward. And I'm not sure where the government is going. I'm not sure where Amazon is going. But I think that there's issues that are raised in this whole incentivized world and chatbot world that we have to keep a close eye on. And again, if we don't like the way this is working, this is another example of where we, as a collection of sellers, if we have the lobbying voice, if we have the right people who are every day knocking on Congress people's door in Washington, pushing our agenda, pushing what we want to say, we can shift it. We can change it and say, hey, look, we need the ability to be able to make our product known. We need the ability to, we're not saying manipulate reviews. Obviously, that's not what we're trying to do, but we need the ability to launch, right? We need to know how we can do this. We want clarity, right? We want to know what is it we're allowed to do. And there has to be some way for us to do this. There has to be some way for us to, organically, but, incentivize people to at least participate in the program, right? Participate in the checking out of our product, reviewing it, getting the word out. How do we do this? It's one of those issues that we could be tackling. So.
Right, absolutely. And I just wanted to point out there was actually some brilliant speeches given at the last event that kind of showed the next generation of reviews and launches and stuff like that, and none of them had to deal with chatbots. I was blown away by that. So I look forward to some of the geniuses that are going to be speaking at the next event and the things and strategies that they come up with to combat, again, the whole giveaway thing and what's going to happen in the future. Now, I know we've covered a ton of Paul, but any last words from you or anything that we kind of left uncovered that you'd like to say before we actually call it a day here?
No, I mean, like I said, I can go on forever about anything and then just about anything at all. No, I think it's, I like what you're doing. I think you have an important audience, and I think, so much of your time is going to be spent teaching them how to grow and get big. I just think, what our role is and what we want to do is we're trying to keep them safe, right? We're trying to keep them out of trouble, but not into a way where, again, it's not in a way where you're unable to do business, because we recognize you guys have to make money, you have to do things, but there are certain things you can do that just, you got to this point in life, now you got to sort of protect yourself, right? You've got to do the right things, and just, which is, again, being in the know. So it's having the knowledge that you need to know, being, understanding the risk and exposure, taking the appropriate action. And then finally, like I said, again, working together. We've got to understand that we have to support this effort to work together on those certain issues that we all have an interest in. So that's the key. So I think that's just the important message that we want to get out there. It's just, now is the time. It's a very exciting time. So I'm just really excited about that message. I want to see more sellers working together and banding together. And, as part of my merge, we're looking for that leadership. We're open to the leadership. We have a board. We want more people on the board. We want more people to serve, to be leaders, and help drive, what issues do we take on as an organization? And how do we do that? And so, it's really an open invitation to everyone to get involved in the effort to make the overall marketplace better for everybody. So
absolutely. And great stuff. Like I said, Paul, amazing information that you gave. I was frantically taking notes. I know I even took notes on a couple spots where Howie was kind of like, I hope you talk about this. So I will have to remind him about that. But as people have become aware, we are going to be having our second ever online Professors Pandemic event, going to be the 9th and 10th of November. Again, you can attend live virtually. Like I tell everybody, it doesn't matter what you have on underneath. You can be in your underwear, you can be in all sorts of whatever you want, your lingerie if you want to, as long as you are fully clothed.
How'd you know?
It's usually every internet marketer's dream, right? To be able to work in their underwear at their computer. We don't need to know. You can keep that a secret, but the real secrets will be flowing out of the actual speakers that are going to be talking at that event. As I said before, on the previous one, I learned all sorts of incredible techniques, like how to rank without chatbots, how to rank brilliantly. $50 million seller actually revealed this by the name of Travis Killian, who will be on again. He's got an encore. People wanted him on again. So you will get to hear his latest and his most brightest ideas. And you will also get to hear the man, the myth, the legend, Howie. Howie, how excited are you about this event? Before I give people the URL here, tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, how pumped you are and how you've been behind the scenes working on what you're going to speak about. It's still under wraps, but we will reveal it very soon. How pumped are you, Howie?
So, I'm very excited. I always want to make it on all my events. I want the people that come in to get a lot of value. What's the point if you're like coming to an event or like listening to people say, and if you can't take away from it? So we want to make sure that like Paul and his partner and other people on the speaker list, that they'll give us as our people, our members, a lot of value. So the last time we had like really crazy stuff, like what to do, how to refresh your honeymoon period, all these three things that what to do when your listing is down. All these I think it was like bad keywords to not put on your listing. The whole set. I think that was like given out to like to our members too. What was that? There was like so many good stuff. I think there was like some special URLs that Anthony was talking about, and I talked about a lot of how to rank without doing giveaways. So things like that. Like this time around, we're gonna try to make it even more valuable and more informational. So that's what I would say that I can think of right now to say.
Yeah, and I want to say this much, Howie, you were wrong about one thing. It was how to put bad keywords in your listing. So, gentleman revealed how to actually put whatever keyword you want in the back end of your listing and get away with it. So it's brilliant little hacks like that might not work for an extended period of time, but there were also several brilliant strategies that have worked and stood through the test of time on Amazon. And as Paul mentioned, things are constantly changing on Amazon. So I really look forward to what Paul and Jeff will be speaking about at that event. And in order to sign up and find out more information about that event, go to howardtai.com/PPE2. And that's because it's the second ever online pandemic event. So I'm fired up. For those of you that did not get that URL again, it's howardtai.com/PPE2. And that's just the number 2, not spelled out, but just 2. And that's pretty much a wrap for this one. I know we covered a ton of information. I know if you were like me, you were taking notes fast and furious. And other than that, Howie, how excited are you for the second season of the podcast? And after that, we'll let everybody get to breakfast, lunch, dinner, wherever you are in the world.
I'm like I said, I'm totally excited to have the next event. I know I kind of stopped the podcast a little bit for like a break, and then I'm bringing it back out right now for this coming event. But we'll try to make it continuously and make sure that we give as much value as possible to our audience as well. There's we're going to give you a glimpse at there's on the next speaker, one of the speakers actually, they're a 3-person team that makes $35 million in sales. So 3-person team.
Yeah, that's
Crazy.
amazing. And I personally know them. They've attended an actual event, so I'm psyched for that. But other than that, thank you so much, Paul. Thank Jeff for being here in spirit. We knew that his knowledge and information is somewhat passed on through you, as well as your incredible knowledge and information and area of expertise. And Howie, thank you for hosting this actual podcast. Finally, let me leave off with the URL again. It's howardtai.com/PPE2. And that's a wrap. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next podcast. And I'm pumped for this season. So without further ado, let's let you guys get on to breakfast, lunch, and or dinner or drinks. Or if you're like me, living in Miami, you might be having drinks for breakfast. So signing off here. I'll see you guys very soon. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.